And now let's find out more about the deal that was hammered out and the developments to come in inter-Korean relations. We are joined by Dr. Jaimskim from the Asan Institute of Policy Studies via Skype. Thank you so much for making time for us today, James.
Thank you for having me.
So the first question is that we've seen a big change this time around. Normally Pyongyang plays the my way or the highway card, but the tables turned. Could you point out specific factors that pressured the regime to turn over an apologetic leaf, so to speak?
Well, first of all, I think it's very clear that the military readiness south, given the Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercise that was happening at the time, currently still, played some role in the sense that it was able to deter any further escalation on the part of the North Korean military. Secondly, North Korea made what I think, a mistake in the escalatory stage by calling for that 48-hour deadline, which essentially locked them in and prevented them from having any other option than the option of opening up talks, which Kim Yong-gun's letter to Kim Kwanjin basically proposed. So the confluence of those two factors together, I think, worked against North Korea and pushed North Korea to come to the bargaining table and hammer out an agreement.
Well, we were disappointed with the changing of the guards in terms of the leadership class in North Korea. Kim Jong-un was not exactly the new generation leader that we anticipated, but it looks like Hwang Byeong may be someone that could be a bit of a difference maker compared to his predecessors. It seemed he was relatively more logic-driven, and is it safe for us to assume that he is open to reasoning?
Well, ultimately, what we have to understand is that the leadership in North Korea and all the decision-making power is centralized around Kim Jong-un, regardless of who is advising him. But it's certainly nice to know that we have someone that Kim Jong-un can rely on to engage in these kinds of negotiations and give him advice, and somebody like who we saw coming down in this negotiation. So overall, I think these are hopeful signs, but we know very little about Hwang other than what we saw. So I think it's too early to jump to any kind of conclusions about whether or not he would have any decisive role to play in the days to come.
And of course, you asked the wrong questions. You could be easily replaced in North Korea. Could you perhaps tell us a little bit more about the significant roles that the two South Korean representatives, negotiators, the dynamic duo, so we could call them, Kim Kwanjin and Hong Yong, who played a key role in this? Clearly, they must have displayed incredible chemistry at the negotiating table, being assertive enough, yet not causing the volatile North to overreact.
I think we have to give all the credit to the negotiators on the South side for basically duking it out for 42, 43 hours. That was a marathon negotiation, and I'm sure it took quite a toll on them psychologically and physically, yet they were able to get through it and hammer out an agreement, which I think was a success from the point of the negotiators.
Now, despite the explanation from the South's presidential office that it's too early to talk about a summit between the two Koreas, speculations are building up over the possibility of a summit talks. What's your take on this?
Well, we can debate the success and failure of this agreement, but the fact remains that the result of these talks have led to, first and foremost, de-escalation of the military standoff on the peninsula. Secondly, I think that the administration now has made an inroad, or sort of a breakthrough, if you will, in relations with the North, in the sense that with this agreement, they now have a channel of communicating with the North. As opposed to before, prior to this agreement, they did not have that dialogue channel. So I think from a diplomatic standpoint, I think this is a very big plus from the administration's point of view. Whether this communication channel or the ongoing dialogue will result in any significant outcome depends on what happens from now. So it was the easy part. This agreement was the easy part. Now comes the hard part, which is what happens after the agreement.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. James-Kim, Research Fellow for the Asan Institute of Policy Studies. I'm sure you're highly in demand, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much for having me.